It seems pretty clear that the White House and the Republican National Committees have some polling indicating that going after House Democrats for, quote, getting nothing done in Congress or failing to legislate has some kind of political upside. But the problem is that talking point is basically the opposite of the truth. House Democrats have passed more than 250 pieces of legislation. Some of those are, the small stuff they do, like post offices. But it also includes big substantive issues, legislation to protect dreamers, election security, a prescription drug pricing plan, the first climate bill in nearly a decade, multiple pieces of gun safety legislation. And none of that, not one piece of legislation, has even gotten an airing in the Senate, where Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, the self-described Grim Reaper, has essentially shut the entire body down. Which means it is just a very weird and frustrating time to be an American senator, frankly, of either party. Joining me now is one of those people who has that weird job, Senator Jeff Merkley, Democrat from Oregon.
I am one of those very frustrated senators.
Yeah, it's funny. I've now had a bunch of conversations with members of the U.S. Senate, and they all say the same thing, that it's hard for them to communicate to folks just how abnormal the last year has been under McConnell's reign. Why? What?
Well, not very long ago, if you remember the Senate, you could force a debate on any topic you wanted. Bills were open for amendment. You could put an amendment forward, and therefore you could force a debate on how to control the price of drugs, or how to take on gun safety, or how to prevent Moscow from getting involved in our 2020 elections. But now what Mitch McConnell has done is taken the privilege of the majority leader and completely shut down the ability of members to raise topics for debate and a vote, which means folks back home don't see any accountability for us because they can't judge where we stand because we haven't taken votes on these issues.
You're just not voting on anything that isn't confirmations of judicial nominees.
It is essentially that, and executive branch nominees, and the appropriation bills are now starting
right.
to...
So the approps bills, it's clear that McConnell wants to fund the government, right? He wants to keep the government open, and he wants to confirm judges. And there's nothing else. Even on something like, prescription drug pricing, Chuck Grassley today tweeted about how he and Ron Wyden have a bipartisan bill. There's a bill in the House. Presumably you guys can work something out on that in the Senate, right?
Well, and even the president said he wanted to have a reference pricing bill, and it would probably be great election politics for him to do it, but he's not willing to take on the drug manufacturers, who are very powerful special interests, and Mitch McConnell's not willing to take them on. So therefore,
that's the reason. So it just dies. This is the one thing that I think McConnell really has passion about is those judicial nominees. I want to play you some sound tonight. He was at a rally in Kentucky where there's a gubernatorial election tomorrow. The president's there. This is what McConnell had to say about judges. Take a listen.
Matt Bevin is making Kentucky great again thanks to your help tonight. And working together, we're changing the federal courts forever. Nobody's done more to change the court system in the history of our country than Donald Trump. And Mr. President, we're going to keep on doing it. My motto is leave no vacancy behind.
They have changed the rules in terms of how these nominees happen. There used to be the system called the blue slip process, which sort of granted to home state senators a kind of veto, particularly district court nominees. That's gone now. It existed under Obama and under Democratic rule. McConnell's gotten rid of it. What are the implications of that?
Well, it's being left in place on circuit, on district, but not on circuit.
I'm sorry, yes, right.
And but what they did is they changed the number of hours for deliberation from 30 hours to 2 hours, so they can just put through so many judges so quickly, taking away any ability to create real opposition. So McConnell is looking at the fact that between his partnership with Trump, they've put through about 100 district judges and a quarter of the active appeal judges, which have far more decision-making ability than the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court takes just a limited number of cases. So they are reshaping the judiciary, and they're doing it for the powerful. The whole federal society approach is let's supersize the First Amendment so the powerful can spend hundreds of millions of dollars and take control of the government by and for the privileged and powerful. This is the exact evisceration of the we the people vision of our Constitution. That's what Mitch McConnell is doing. That's what Trump is doing. It's not for ordinary Americans. It's for the rich and powerful. And we have to find a way to stop them. And that's going to be the elections next year.
There's also the idea of you talked about the appropriations legislation. The one thing that I think McConnell wants to do, I don't think McConnell wants a shutdown. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. He didn't want the first one around. No. He talked about the no wisdom and the no learning and the second kick of the donkey, right? And then he got kicked. this is the president leaving open the possibility of a shutdown over impeachment. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Can you commit to no government shutdown? I mean, can you, people that are concerned, what would you say?
It depends on what the negotiation. I wouldn't commit to anything. It depends on what the negotiation is.
Can you imagine a situation in which the president shut down the government with the demand that the impeachment inquiry stop?
Well, I don't see him connecting it directly, but in terms of a distraction for the American people, change the news stories to what is not happening. You can't get into your national parks, or et cetera, all the things that happen when we shut down the government. The American people hate the government being shut down, however.
Yes.
So I'm not sure that this is a smart political move.
No, it's swallowing the grenade to keep it from going off.
Yes, that's a vivid way to put it.
I don't think that. Yeah, I mean, the last time that his approval ratings really tanked was during the shutdown. But they do seem intent on finding some ways to try to gum up the works on impeachment. It's coming to your House of Congress almost certainly. What do you think about the reporting on your Senate colleagues that we were just talking about, trying to come up with an argument they can use to defend the president?
Well, they are really searching for a way to give a consistent message, and they're all over the map right now. Some are saying, well, let's just echo what the president says. There was no quid pro quo. Others are saying, well, there wasn't effectively a quid pro quo because it was never completed. Eventually, Ukraine got the aid without producing the goods on the Bidens. Others are saying, you know what? There was a quo, but it was a meritorious quo, simply the president pursuing corruption.
Right.
And so the list goes on. And at the heart of it is a sense that they are basically losing their integrity on this issue. They're not putting country before party. They're strategizing together over a political message that will let the president off the hook, rather than thinking about what is the real evidence. What does it imply about a president soliciting interference in the 2020 election, let alone the 4 cases of obstruction of justice that were in the Mueller report,
right,
and hugely documented? And that is a problem. One of my colleagues said, you've got to think about this. This was a Republican colleague. You've got to think about this as if the president was in the opposite party. How would you act? That's integrity. And so I think there may be a small group of Republicans who are thinking, I want to act with integrity. But the pressure is so high because my political base is hearing from Fox News. They're hearing,
My favorite thing about that is that the very same senators who are doing that will then go on Twitter to blast an NBA player who won't speak out against China. And it's like, look in the mirror. Senator Jeff Merkley, it's great to have you here in the studio.
Great to be
Come by
with you.
anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.